for anybody who's a sports fan, and I know that there's a reason why I do this on a Saturday night and not on a Monday or a Thursday. Uh, Basketball is the sport that I played. It's the sport that I love. It's what I grew up enjoying, uh, not just to play, but to watch. Would go to games, and obviously over the past, couple of decades, the game has changed substantially, and not for the better, in fact, for the very worst. And as the NBA in particular keeps sliding down the mountain, and you would think that the All-Star game was enough to kind of give people an idea of what direction the NBA was going in, particularly how they lauded this, who I will not even name, All-Star from the Portland Trailblazers, who happens to be Israeli. That was only part of the story. The additional layers include the responses from LeBron James regarding the state of Israel, as well as the reaction from the public at large, particularly in the Zionist community, to Spike Lee and Kyrie Irving for daring to shine a positive light on Palestine. But if you think that's bad, this is where you know that tone deafness has met a place that the elites and everyone else have completely disconnected. The Los Angeles Lakers will play the New York Knicks in Tel Aviv next season. This marks the first time the NBA is playing a game in Israel, with more expected. So this isn't just one, it's one of many. When I think about tone deafness, when I think about a disconnect from what's going on, and perhaps maybe it's just a reflection of the Zionist culture at large, with the propensity to double and triple down on their genocidal ideology. After the backlash, the negative press that the NBA has experienced over the past week, and it's already a league in utter turmoil when you consider how difficult it is for them to continue to attract fans to a game that, I mean, let's be honest, if we're talking about a product on the court, yes, there's a lot of talent, but the complete disregard for defense, for team camaraderie, even team loyalty for that matter, and to hell with the fans. I mean, who the hell are they? Other than people that are foolish enough to spend the thousands of dollars that is now required in order to take a family to the game and enjoy it. Those days of being able to afford to go to an NBA game, long gone, over, done with. But it should come as no surprise that the two primary cities, I guess you could say Miami would have been the third one, in terms of who would have any interest in seeing a team go over to Tel Aviv. New York and Los Angeles? Of course, that makes the most sense. But this, in so many respects, is just another example of how the league is completely disconnected from not only where the average fan is, but where the United States as a whole is at large regarding the state of Israel. So the defiance from the NBA should come as no surprise. This has been an act of defiance on their part regarding how they've conducted business for the past several decades. I remember the night that LeBron announced his decision, July 1st, 2010, I think was the date, somewhere around there. And I remember saying, yep, this is going to reverberate and it's going to have an incredibly negative impact on the league. And it did. Now, was the NBA finished when LeBron announced his decision? No, but as you can see over time, the game has slowly but surely deteriorated to a point in which as I was alluding to, their level of disconnect from the average person is substantially large, to the point in which the league is probably ruining itself. And this, again, should come as no surprise. This is what we expect from the NBA. Whether it's from the revelations in the Epstein files regarding the former late commissioner of the NBA, David Stern, whether it is the current commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, whether it's, I believe, 60%, possibly higher, might be as high as 70%, of the current NBA team owners all fall under the Zionist Jewish contingent. So again, this level of defiance, no surprise. And this is exactly why when we talk about why is the NBA dying, why is the product dying, why is the brand dying, this is yet another feather in the cap for when the obituary is finally written for a league that is barely holding its head above water. On the international level, yeah, perhaps it's definitely still got some pull. When you think about the biggest stars in the league today, particularly Wemby and Joker, you're talking about two international superstars. But when it comes to the league in general on the domestic side, it really goes to show you that of all the things that they wanted to focus on during All-Star Weekend, became the primary driving talking point regarding an Israeli all-star. There's probably a lot of other things that they could have been drawing their attention to, but they decided to go with this. And so I bring this up because this is just one of a multi-layered story that I think gets more and more interesting. Now, Colin, if you have that tweet that I also sent you regarding Kevin Durant, and I don't know this person that he was communicating with on social media. Perhaps he's somebody of note. But there was a debate regarding, on one hand, the new designs of the championship trophies. Now, if you ask me, it's really not much to that. But on the other hand, there was a little interesting message that was thrown in there. So, Colin, if you could pull that up, please. Y'all remember he changed the design. So this is Pranav Siriman. Y'all remember that he changed the design of every major trophy there was for zero reason at all? Yeah, kind of like the time I remember when the NBA decided to change their basketball, the actual ball, and it drove the players nuts, and eventually they had to switch it back. Why did they change it? Because it was a cost saver. Something as stupid as that. But of course, it didn't last. That was back in like the 06-07 season, if I remember correctly. And so if you could bring up the chat commentary. No, we don't have to look at this, Colin. Don't worry about these. I want to go directly, if you scroll down. Nope, scroll down. You'll see right here. Kevin Durant, who apparently has a number of burner accounts on social media, so he makes a habit out of this. We're talking about one of the three biggest superstars in the league over the past decade plus. This is what he does for shits and giggles because he clearly has nothing better to do. And when you give people way too much money and way too much fame, they end up doing things like this. Damn, y'all even hate the trophies? So Pranav responds with, not as much as I hate your drone investments. Now, if you click on that, show the replies. So Durant clearly decides to sidestep this response and says, so you hate the trophies. My God, you guys are just miserable. Why? Because not everybody's rich and famous like you are, Kevin. You in the very top echelon to society, probably worth a couple $100 million. A lot more than that, excuse me, because he's a entrepreneur. Not the only thing I mentioned I hate. Address me. So scroll down a little bit more and you'll see. I hate the drone investments too, but damn, you deleted a normal reply to a banger hunt. Well, Durant decided not to respond. He decided that he was going to sidestep a question about whether or not he is invested in a drone company. Now, would you care to guess which country the drone company is that he's invested in? You already know the answer. Colin, please pull up the article. Kevin Durant's investment portfolio, 5 biggest companies. Skydio, total amount raised, $562 million. Now, keep in mind, this investment goes back to prior to October 7th, 2023. So he's been invested in Israel for a while. Drone manufacturer Skydio raised another $230 million in Series E funding earlier this year, with the latest round lifting its valuation to $2.2 billion. Skydio, which has grown at a 30x rate over the past 3 years, plans to use the money to raise this year to build a new manufacturing plant in Hayward, California, which will boost its capacity tenfold. Skydio has experienced massive demand for its autonomous drones from government agencies, with its drones being used by over 200 safety agencies in the US. Here's the little kicker. Now, we don't need to worry about the other investments. This is the one that obviously was the primary driver here. Skydio is an Israeli-based company. And Durant has invested millions upon millions of dollars in this organization. Do you think he stopped investing in them after October 7th, 2023? Or did he stick around for the massive upswing in valuation by the organization? Yes, he did. And yes, he is still invested in them. So this brings me, he not only doubled down, but I'm going to show you guys exactly what the NBA has come to today. Colin, if you will, with that image. Now, what you have here, as I've mentioned before, are probably the three biggest NBA superstars over the past, we'll say, decade to a decade and a half. I would still say that over the course of the initial years of LeBron's decision, you still had a plethora of superstars that were not part of this insane transition that the league ultimately went under. You still had Dirk Nowitzki, you still had Tim Duncan, you still had Kevin Garnett, and yes, you had the late Kobe Bryant. But ultimately, the league got taken over by the likes of LeBron, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant. I might not be able to jump very high, but I could lock you down defensively. That I can do. This is what the NBA has become. The NBA and its partnership with the Zio state is now completely undeniable. What they have effectively become, and without question, there is no gray area here. Yes, this is an AI photo. They didn't actually take a picture in the IDF uniforms. But is there really a difference, though, when you consider the expose we did on Steph Curry and his investment in Israeli tech companies, when you figure out that Kevin Durant has done the same? And of course, LeBron saying, I've only heard great things about Israel, and I can't wait to get there. I hate the fact that I can't watch basketball anymore. I hate the fact that the sport that I loved, that I grew up playing, that I really enjoyed, has turned into this. But you know what? The more I mature, the more I live, the more I realize that sports is fun, but that's part of why football is the most enjoyed sport. It's usually one day a week, although they've changed that dramatically, Mondays and Thursdays as well. Point is, you have your team, you have one game a week, and you have it for 4 months. And that's it. Now, of course, the NFL is not much better than the NBA. They don't blatantly show their support for Israel the way the NBA does. Neither does hockey or baseball. But that doesn't mean that there aren't owners and shareholders, if you will, that take a significant level of economic, political, social interest in the Israel cause. What we know for absolute certainty, which has been the hallmark of the NBA since the days of Magic, Bird, and Michael, what was a saving grace period during the 80s and 90s, and in my opinion, the best run in the history of the league, those days are long gone. They're decades long gone. And while there are still great players playing in the league today, the league is nothing like it once was. And it's dying a slow death because the people at the very top who control the outfit, if you will, they don't care. Anyone who thinks it was reasonable to have a basketball game played in Tel Aviv, scheduling it at this point, right now, a year from now. As I said, that's a level of tone deafness and disconnect from reality that only a rich, entitled, Zionist Jewish contingent of people could possibly think was a reasonable form of discourse.